Hello and welcome to Nouakchott, where the African Union Summit is being held. Our guest today is the President of Chad, Idriss Déby. President, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for being here with us at the House of Chad.
President, we're going to talk about the Sahel G5, of course. There has been a spectacular attack against the headquarters of the Sahel G5 in Sévaré in Mali. After that, there was another attack in the north of Mali. This attack against the Sahel G5 clearly proves that there are failings in terms of security. It's a very strong symbol.
Yes, it's a very strong symbol. You have to remember, there were continuously attacks of the jihadists against the positions of the G5 and against the forces of the United Nations. But this time, the attack in Sévaré, which is the headquarters of the G5 force, really shattered us, because it's the nervous center where we design all our operations. So I think there were some insufficiencies regarding the security.
To say the least.
I think a lack of vigilance and certainly other causes, human causes, that led to this situation. We have assessed the situation to understand what happened. We hope we're going to take the measures and strong decisions that will enable to avoid this kind of attacks in the future against the headquarters of G5 Sahel.
Do you think that the establishment of the Sahel G5 is taking too long, that there are not enough operations?
Remember, G5 Sahel is a creation of 5 countries in 2014. And the only country that supported us is France, and the only one still supporting us is France. Many meetings took place in Paris, in Brussels, in Bamako, in Niamey, in Chad. But the operation G5 is suffering a lack of financial and material means. The operations of G5 Sahel is also suffering the incomprehension of the United Nations Security Council, who doesn't want to deliver a robust mandate enabling a legal coverage for the countries involved in the fight against jihadism.
And also in financial terms.
Yes, it's the major problem we're facing is financial and material.
In financial terms, the European Union has given money, so has Saudi Arabia, for the first year, but the problem is what happens after. Do you think that the international community is supporting you, is saying, go ahead, it's great, pool the resources, fight terrorism, but if you need help from us in terms of equipment and finance, forget it?
You have to look at it from several point of views. The operation of G5 Sahel, it's purely military. Obviously, it suffers a lot of problems we are facing, material, financial, and others. And there's also the other aspect of fighting against terrorism that is against the development. We had many meetings. There are many announcements made, but until today, until yesterday, in fact, the observation we made is that there are no precise actions, material actions, in terms of implementation of financing for the operations of the G5 Sahel. There's no, in concrete terms, resources that are made available to trigger the development that could hold back people, prevent them from going to the jihad or sending them towards migration.
We'll talk about this in just a minute, but last question. Are you afraid that the G5 Sahel is under threat?
Threatened? No, the word is too tough. All the countries are threatened.
The idea of establishing the G5 Sahel is under threat if there's no support.
Of course, if there's no support...
For the G5 Sahel.
Listen, we created G5 Sahel. Whatever will happen, G5 Sahel will not be threatened, will not be dissolved. G5 Sahel, maybe we will have to commit to finance after 4 years of experience. It's important for the countries member of the G5 would pocket out some money. This is what we're going to do for the first year. Now, for the next years, we'll see what the partners will deliver.
Right. Now, you briefly spoke about the issue of migrants in Europe. This is a key issue in Europe. There has been a European summit. The EU has taken different measures, and they're talking now about regional landing platforms. In other words, some African countries would now be places where migrants would be selected in terms of asylum applications. France has proposed similar experiments in Niger and in Chad. What's your view?
No results in Chad.
So it's a failure in Chad.
We had to face that in Chad. We're intercepting thousands and thousands of migrants. We take them to the northern cities. Chad has no possibility to feed all those migrants. And it's thanks in the recent time, since the beginning, in fact, with the support of IOM, enabling us to bring back those migrants with difficulties to their own countries. It's not a good solution. And even less so create platforms in Libya. Libya is a state without government. They have no government. You know perfectly well that Libya has instrumented also the migrants. Enslavement of some migrants, African, in Libya.
Which, of course, was shocking.
Yes, it's shocking. I don't think it's a good idea to create those centers like that.
But it's worse than that.
Develop the countries of origin of the migrants to enable those people to have work.
Right, but just to clarify, the French plan in Chad did not work.
Not at all, not at all. We didn't have a legal framework enabling us to, a legal support to manage those people. We didn't have the means to support those people. When you regroup people, you have to put them in a situation, how should I say, abiding by the human rights, at least. You're going to regroup people in health situation, in food solutions, which are unbearable. And from a human point of view, we cannot carry on with that. This is why it didn't work.
Right, but in Libya, to go back to Libya, is it not shocking? In fact, it's a crime when you say that, well, it's up to Libya and the Libyan coast guards to deal with this. We in Europe can no longer handle this. And yet we know that detention conditions are appalling. We've spoken about a slave trade.
Libya is a link in a very long chain of passage of migrants. We have smugglers in our country, which are also criminals. You have the same criminals in Libya that are exploiting those migrants. But where it's shocking, it's to use the migrants like things, like slaves, by Libyans who are also Africans. This is shocking.
But is it not shocking when Europe says it's for Libya to look after this, given the way it's doing it?
Europe is aware of the behavior of the Libyans regarding the Africans.
So it's endorsing this?
If Europe thinks that we should regroup the Africans in Libya, meaning it's as if telling the Libyans, do whatever you want with those Africans. You can enslave them. Whatever you want, do it. It's like an open door. Is it a good thing? No. I think it's not a good thing.
Now, in Libya, the security situation is still extremely chaotic. There's an election calendar that was drawn up during a meeting in Paris. Election to be held on the 10th of December.
It lasts since 2011. I think people do not learn the lessons. Are elections in themselves a solution to solve the crisis the way we know it in Libya? Take the example of the Central African Republic. What was the situation after the election? Well, there is an elected president there. The election in themselves, in a situation of crisis, is not a solution.
This can be a threat.
Yes, it might be a danger. Who will accept a Libyan who has won the election? The guns will still fire in Libya. You have to prepare the ground first for election. Libyans have to recognize themselves, to reconcile.
So you have to postpone these elections. It's absurd for the 10th of December.
Personally, I have no objection for elections to be held. in December.
But not under present circumstances.
But I'm almost certain that in December there will be no election. And even if there are elections and there is a winner, the winner will not be able to manage Libya, to lead Libya. And disorders will increase, war will go on.
Very quickly, you mentioned the Central African Republic, which has been somewhat forgotten. We know that last year the UN talked about the early signs of genocide. Chad called on the international community to be very careful about the crisis. What's your view of the situation? Is it still as bad or even worse?
It is not good. I'm not the one who says that. Yesterday, the Archbishop of Bangui sounded the alarm. But the international community estimates that through a process of the one we know, United Nations, the forces of United Nations, they can find a solution in Central African Republic.
It's unrealistic?
Unrealistic. Remember, you're very young. It was in 1960 the first intervention of the UN was in the Central African Republic, and the UN is still there without delivering any solution. Now tell me, name me one African crisis that was managed from end to end by the United Nations with a solution.
And internally, there have been some reforms that were implemented. Many people think that you want to be a president for life.
Those who say that don't know me.
This will be your last term?
I wouldn't say that. Only God may say if I'll be alive in 2021. And then we'll see. For the time being, we have other occupations which are much more important.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget that I have the current reforms which are necessary regarding the political situation, economic situation, social situation, also regarding the financial situation. Led me to make these reforms. The reforms were planned during the campaign of 2016.
Thank you very much, President.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this interview on France 24. Stay with us.